So we're going to do an interactive presentation, a little different from some of the others. Really aren't going to be a lot of slides. I understand for those of you who are watching on the live stream, this may be a little disappointing to you. So the best that you could do, and we'll just go from there. So good morning, and welcome back to YAP. I would like to present a short ad hoc skit called Backlog Skit. And I have 4 players. Our style is theater of the oppressed, so at any point, if anybody sees something they don't like, you can stand up and say stop, and redirect the actors to act differently. I will do so at times as well. But any of you feel free, and feel free to take over their role if you would like, for those of you who are not familiar with that style. I'd like to present the players. We have Josh, who is the product owner. Josh, want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Josh, the product owner.
Ivy?
Hi, I'm Ivy, the front-end developer.
Nick?
I'm Nick, the dev lead.
Dev lead. Mateo?
I'm Mateo, and I'm the badass programmer.
Rockstar programmer.
Programmer.
Programmer, that's correct. Okay, great. So this is a backlog meeting where the product owner has the things that they want to get done. And they're coming here, and our project is website redesign. Can you tell me about the website redesign?
Well, this sprint we're hoping to do a website redesign. We'd like a new logo, we would like a new color scheme, and we would like to redo the registration page so we have more fields and we can collect more data from our people as they sign up to the website.
Great. You also want a report so you can prove to your boss that it was a good idea.
Right, and then after it's done, we'd like a report to prove that it was a good idea.
Does the team lead have anything to say about this?
I think we should fix our broken Unicode instead.
And that's only for foreign language speakers. They don't really matter so much.
Mateo, you look like you have a thought on Unicode or...
Oh yeah, I love Unicode.
Ivy, how do you feel about doing a full redesign?
That's a lot of work. Can we make our logo pink and green? But can we just stop this and let's do our work, okay? This meeting is just...
Well, that'd be cool if you guys actually did some work for a change.
Stop. Okay, great. What's wrong?
Josh is saying things he wishes he could say at work.
Okay, great. It was inappropriate comment. Great. What else?
I'm just kidding.
No, that's
The product owner doesn't know what they do.
the product owner doesn't tell me what should the product owner be doing. You want to come here, come up.
Oh, no,
Come.
no, you don't want me.
Correct. What should he be doing?
I don't know the first thing about being a product owner.
Oh, but you knew that he was doing it wrong. So what's he doing wrong?
Well, I think the dev team hasn't explained their role. Well, prior to this meeting, it should have occurred to the product owner what these roles are.
Okay. Maybe it'd be better for the product owner to have a better understanding of what can be done. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but our
Yep.
agile team doesn't work any better than that one.
Well, let's see if we can improve it a little bit. So, what do you all think he should know about you in order to be able to help us figure out what we can actually do?
He should know what type of beer I like.
Okay. What kind of beer he should bring to the program? Okay, but what else? If we were trying to make it a little bit better, it's actually a project that we could actually do.
At what hours not to bother me?
Okay, great. And as a team lead, what is disappointing about this to you?
He wants to add more fields when we're on Windows 12.52 in coding, and that means more Windows 12.52.
Can you explain to the audience what that means?
It's not UTF-8.
It's not UTF-8, okay.
It's bad.
It's bad. So I think basically one of the problems
Stop. Does the product owner understand the jargon that the dev lead was just talking about?
Does the product owner understand what he's talking about?
Not as a product owner, no.
Stop. Stop.
Good,
Doesn't
good.
matter.
Does it matter?
They want something and they want it done. They don't care how.
That's a good question. What level of technicality does the product owner need to have? Does anybody have any feelings about that? Yes.
Depends on the product owner, I imagine. Some product owners might want a lot of detail and others don't want to be bothered with the details, I imagine.
I do imagine that teams might be different. Some product owners might be more technical, may have come from the development team. Other product owners may have come from business school, right? Does that matter so much? Could that be made to work? I mean, what would be the differences?
I think that's important. That matters a lot.
I think like if a product owner is very technical, they can sometimes become a little too dictatorial as to the actual steps. Isn't that possibly a problem? Right. And I think a lot when it's the opposite side, when they're coming from a business school background, sometimes they They're thinking so much about the product. Stop, yeah, go ahead.
I think a bigger problem is that none of the dev team has the slightest interest in doing the project that the business owner wants done.
Good point. Does anybody want to redesign the website? Do you think it's a good idea?
It's a huge job. I think the product owners, part of the product owner's job is to at least break it up into manageable sizes, first of all, because we're just overwhelmed. And I have a lot of work to do, and this meeting is just too long, and I want to do it now.
Great.
Get back to your Facebook.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, I was gonna say, nobody's actually talking about the work in front of them, like what's proposed.
Right.
What might involve, or how big it is, can we do it in a set amount of time? Everybody's talking about what they wish they could do instead of what's on the table to start with.
What might be a method we could use to prevent that in the future? Prevent people from coming here with their grievances and talking about things other than what's on the backlog?
Weekly one-on-ones with managers to have a dedicated area of grievances here.
Or perhaps maybe that when this backlog is being written, this group of people should be there in the room and giving the input at that original time. That might also help. Okay.
There's another issue, which is we have no designer, and this is like half design.
The team makeup isn't correct. Great. I thought I saw somebody else had a comment over here. So what could we do here? We have a website redesign. That's what we walked in the door with. What are we going to walk out the door with? What here looks doable? Or what here is something that we might be able to break out and think of as an actual chunk? Any thoughts from the audience?
Probably definitely break out the logo. It seems small. I mean, not for a technical team, but for an artist or a designer, it's something small and quantized that you can iterate on possibly within a single sprint.
Stop. A logo might not fit into the current color scheme, so you might not be able to do it separately.
Well, it's also possible. So I do think though that we could probably break out the logo, redesign, and maybe not necessarily have it be a logo this is the final logo, but perhaps we should say we're going to come up with a prototype of maybe 3 or 4 designs, and that we're going to put that aside as we develop the color scheme. What do we think of that? Is that something that seems a little more like rational? Team? Okay, so let's add that. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to add a lot of details. Normally we probably would, but we only have a few minutes, so.
I'm really a fan of pink and green too, so maybe we could move towards those colors.
2 out of 4.
Oh yeah.
And you might want to have, if you were in charge of this project, Ivy, to create 4 project logos, how might you think of conceiving doing this? What would be the next sort of step?
First of all, get a designer to do it. 'cause we
You would
don't
find a
have one.
designer, right?
Right, and maybe get the consensus of 2 or 3 people on the direction, not too many people. And probably find out, do an audit of where all the logos are on our site.
Good question. You might need to, in order to be able to scope the change of the problem, you may need to look at the entire site. So that's another task that somebody could easily just go off and do.
And actually, this is just the interim logo, then we're going to change it to the actual official one.
Because you might have you might think you have 2 logo sizes, but maybe you have 7, right? That might, and then that might have a big effect on the scope of the project. So that's another good breakout point. Okay. Anybody from the audience have any thoughts about things you might want to do with the logo?
Well, you've got to talk to branding to make sure that you're using an appropriate logo for the company. Otherwise, they're not going to be very happy with you.
So when you bring that logo together, you're going to have a breakout meeting and make sure you invite all the appropriate people, correct? So let's get that down. So get a meeting together, all logo stakeholders, is that right? Logo.
So, what is this meeting then? If it does not include all the stakeholders?
Well, you know what, this meeting, one of the things that's great about the backlog meeting is you can throw down whatever you want and you may not necessarily get it. So it's like the big wish list meeting, but this is the place where we could all talk about actually turning wild ideas into deliverables, right? Website redesign is not something we can deliver, but I could deliver a meeting of all the logo stakeholders. Like you could figure out, you could talk to your boss, you could talk to the CEO, get together a list of the 4 or 5 people that are the most important logo stakeholders, put together an initial meeting and let them take another step with it. So that's what's good about this is that it's now taking it off our backlog because it's as something that we can't actually do, right? Any other thoughts about logo?
The extension of it, which is talk to the marketing people who need to change all their designs of, I don't know, the
Oh, beyond the website,
beyond
you
the
mean?
website, right?
Okay. So you need to, you might need to also make a catalog of printed and advert, just so we understand what that impact would have on them, right? You know, maybe, you never know, they might be planning like a humongous new ad campaign next month, and they might be really upset if you change the logo in the middle of their ad campaign they've been working on for 6 months. That's another good bulk up.
You've also got all of their conference materials, t-shirts, handouts, swag, all of that stuff has to be checked.
That would need to be added to the details in this,
Got it.
right? To figure out what all those things, what would be the overall impact. Oops. Hey. Yeah, rally sometimes, but we will study all these tool stuff. All right, great. So I think we started to break down this piece a little bit. We've gone from here to a bunch of actual, like a new logo, and now we've sort of moved towards some deliverable tasks. Some of these things here are things we could do. Why don't we talk, let's move and talk a little bit more about other things. What's another thing here we think we could bust out?
The new registration page with more sign-up fields.
Could we do the registration page independently of anything else and then measure like the impact?
You would want to have the report done either before that or with that so that you can measure that, otherwise you're going to miss the initial impact.
That's great. So perhaps we should do, what do you all think of that? I mean, should the report be done before we do, you know, so we should be collecting the report data before we actually want to know if it had an impact or not? Josh?
We can't measure what we don't know.
Can't measure what you don't know. Any other thoughts?
We could A/B test it.
Yes.
Put it into an A/B test.
You also have to coordinate the new design with the layout of the new sign-up page. So you have to make sure that you have the CSS and how wide fields are going to be and whatnot, and that's going to fit in with the new design that you're going to make.
It's a good question. Is it conceivable that we could decouple the change in the collection requirements on registration from the look and feel changes? Or maybe we might want to do look and feel changes first, and then, I don't think we should do both at the same time. Does that sound correct? Because then it's hard to like know what was the improvement. Did the new design make it better, or was it the changes to the registration
One
field,
side
right?
has to drive that. Either the programmer has to drive the layout requirements of the new forms and fields, and then branding has to accommodate that, or the design has to drive that, and the programmer has to then integrate the right
Or you break
forms.
it up so that you have the UI guys designing to an API that the programmers supply. So the
Right, as long
programmers
as that's
don't know
established, as long as
anything
people
about
are on
what's
the same
going on the
page with
page
that.
other than this is the material, and the UI guys do whatever fancy crap they want to do.
Or you might have a product owner step back driving this forward.
This might be a good time to ask ourselves, when you say you want a new sign-up page, what was the goals for that? So as a product owner, could you talk about what is it you're looking for? Why are you asking for a new sign-up page? And this is something, Nick, that you as the team lead probably could be asking. Tell me about this. Why do you want this? So I understand what the use case that's driving this request.
Tell me about this. Why do you want this so I can understand the use case that's driving this request?
Well, ideally, we'd get their Facebook login so we could slurp down all their personal data. Just making it real, just keeping it real.
Too real.
But mostly, you know, for marketing information, what's their demographic, how can we spam them in the future, this kind of stuff.
So really, the request is we would like to, and this is sometimes where like a product owner might be dictating a thing to do because they think that to-do is going to solve the problem that they really have, right? So here, the problem that Josh is articulating, and we got him to talk to us about because we asked him what his real problem was, he says he wants to get more information about the users. One way to do that is to slam them on the sign-up page, okay? There might be other ways of achieving that goal, and perhaps we could If we had a longer meeting, we could do a breakout meeting, have a discussion. What might be other ways to do this that may not be as intrusive to the users? Or, I think Mateo, or somebody here said A/B test, I think it was you, right? Maybe we might want to do it as an A/B test to see, to make sure that adding more fields doesn't have negative impact on registration or any of those other kind of things, right? This is probably a good place to, we want to know, we want to encourage users to give more information about ourselves. We probably would want to stop this task and talk about that further, to understand other mechanisms for that. Josh, do you have anything to add to that? Would you be open to like hearing alternatives to it, or are you really? Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty firm on my ideas, but I guess I would listen.
And I think this is something that's going to be important for teams. If we identify what works when the team is willing to express their real problems and hear alternatives to those solutions, rather than, no, this is what I want. I want it no matter what. Okay, if they're really stubborn, it's going to be hard to move past these points, right? Let's see this one. Any thoughts about number 2, the new color scheme and styles? How might we may actually take that on? What might be a good way to take that on?
With that one, I think you definitely need a designer involved.
You need a designer involved. So perhaps rather than just simply going and coding, we might want to maybe make a new style book for the website. You know, some designer could go off and look at the existing website and say, like, this is what, you know, come up with this. People familiar with the style book? You know what that is? It's like, you know, like, this is what head 1 looks like, this is what head 2 looks like, and these are what our tables look like, and you know, this is what a 3-column page and a 2-column page looks like. Oh.
How about identifying maybe what people, the people that want it to change, why they want it to change, what it is that they don't like about it.
So what is it about the site that you don't like?
You know, mostly after 6 years, it just looks old and dated. It's not actually if there's anything wrong with it. We just need to churn it to something new looking.
Like a certain company did.
This, I mean, like every company does.
Although Google managed to like make very slow changes to their changes, but they have a kind of an unusual approach. But it's something to think about. So,
you know, I'm concerned that I'm going to be stuck working on the old Mason templates. I really think we should bring Chris on board and have him do it.
Definitely. I agree.
Look, unfortunately, I only had a 20-minute presentation, so we're coming to the end. I'd like to open up to questions or thoughts or comments or like from people. What do you think? Is there anything here in this technique that you might be able to bring back, for example, to your own companies and try to use? Good one. Go.
Well, just one thing I'd say is that, like, where I work, there is, of course, always tension between the product side and the tech side.
Yes.
But we also tend to disagree in terms of how much specification the developers want from the product side. And some people who maybe they've worked on the development side of tech longer and are more influenced by the what we might call the official versions of Scrum Agile theory.
Right. Say,
well, you know, products should just specify the high details and let us take care of all the rest. Others, me, right, are actually a bit more comfortable getting down and working one-to-one with knowledgeable product people who, you know, who share some of my technical lingo, and when I share some of their product lingo, and kind of like working things out that way, and you know, don't feel that there has to be this rigid separation between product's role and tech's role.
I think that, like, one of the things I was hoping to try to achieve was this, is to get people to think about the idea that the process is more about communication and respect than about a process. When it didn't work was when people didn't respect each other and then came in with, like, sticking to their guns. When things started to work is when people were willing to let go of their original ideas, perhaps modify what their original thinking was based on the input of others. Okay, so if in your case that works for you, because you have the respect and you have good communication, and that works, okay? There can be, depending on the team, I did one extreme, which was the project owner comes in with like very little details, but they want a humongous project. Sometimes they do the opposite. They have a humongous project. They come in with 80 pages of details, right? And it's too long to read, as they say, right? It could go both ways. I do think that one of the things that I think we've seen is when people are willing to talk about what they want and change it based on input and discussion, it works better. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Anybody, any of the actors want to say anything?
Well, I want to add to what he said. How much detail can you drill down when you're having these meetings? Like, for instance, with the registration form, should you discuss which fields should be required, because that affects your database schema, that affects front end, that affects a lot of the things. So how detailed do you want to go into these things?
I think that at some point, the tech lead is going to need to cut off a discussion if it goes off track, right? There's a certain amount of technical detail that probably belongs in planning between your team rather than here in the backlog, and it's going to be your tolerance for it.
This is becoming a very expensive meeting at this point.
I think one of the things that's nice about having time boxed, like you say, like the backlog meeting can only be a certain length, and if you only get through one task, then that's it. You just do the one task and go. You don't push yourself to do anything else.
And you try to address the problems in the process that made you only get to.
Then you should take a separate meeting and work through that.
Which is all time boxed.
Yes. We're out of time. I see more people coming in here. Thank you so much. Please stand up.